I don't know shit about Lord of the Rings. I've never read even a single page of any of the books. My knowledge of the lore ends at the first two paragraphs of Wikipedia summary, and I watched films for the first time when I was 15, and they were in Polish. So that definitely wasn't the intended first experience of Rotor Universe.
Mój pan Sauron Wielki każe was powitać. Kto z tej hałastry ma uprawnienia, by...
What I'm getting at is that I'm definitely not the intended target audience for Middle-earth Shadow of War. That's one hell of a title, and I think even if you mastered out all of the deepest lore of Rotor Universe, it still makes little to no sense. But it doesn't need to make sense, because this is a movie, or I guess a book, licensed game, and those are usually made for the most invested and knowledgeable followers of that intellectual property who want to experience some new aspects of their beloved franchises. Also coincidentally, the majority of those licensed games are an absolute trash fire. Giving a license to some unknown underground game company to then underpay and abuse them for making a quick buck is a common practice among the movie-based games. So I was quite skeptical when Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor was originally announced. And for those who are unaware, it's the game to which Shadow of War is a sequel to. You may guess that they are related from a title which is just as cryptic, but somehow even harder to remember. I didn't play that game, not before the Shadow of War I mean. From what I've seen, it looked alright. You run around, killed orcs, there was this character, whom I absolutely despised in the films, but at the same time couldn't stop admiring that technological finesse behind his creation, and also there was some wrinkled spooky elf ghost, who was very wrinkly and ghostly. That's the extent of what I knew about the first game, before I finally decided to try its sequel years after every cool kid already played it. And unfortunately I can't say that I liked it, because the truth be told I got absolutely addicted to this game. Every few months or so I have this viscous desire to boot it up again and just casually finish its story, side content, DLCs, oh those precious DLCs, collect all of the pointless stuff which gives me absolutely nothing of value in return, and just mess around in the open world for hours on end. And I can't explain why this game has such an effect on me. Well, I can explain it, I have the whole channel where explaining is all I do. But this time it has nothing to do with deep existential plots or thematic allegories. This time it's just me being unapologetically in love with this game's gameplay. Because at the end of the day, we play games to have fun, and clicking buttons to make pixels explode on your screen is the most basic, primitive form of fun a game can create. However, there is nothing primitive about constructing an addictive playground which can keep such a goldfish brain like myself immersed for hours in the convoluted process of dismantling orcs into the tiniest of pieces. The way this game is constructed is nothing but pure art, and we have to thank the megaminds at Monolith Production for giving us such a sterile simulator of orc pacification. This game developer is responsible for such kick-ass games as the old-school classic Brad, the original Fear, the Condemned games, and other unspecified games which may or may not be connected to the Rotor universe and whose existence we will ignore. What all these games have in common is that they are very gameplay-based. Of course, they have some sort of overarching plot in them, but it rather serves a purpose of leading you from one cool gameplay moment to another. But in such a deep and convoluted universe as Lord of the Rings, that wouldn't cut it. Because it is precisely the story that makes millions of fans all over the world fall in love with this fictional world. So in Shadow of War, the narrative is given one of the central leading roles, right? Well, the greatest compliment I can give this story is that it's here, I guess. Yeah. Because, don't get me wrong, there are some very exciting and outstanding scenes here, but more often than not it's just this. Hey Taron, you blind stupid idiot, go kill some orcs. Well yes, I will go and kill some orcs. I did as you asked and killed orcs. Good, but you're still a fool who will pay for his foolishness and stupidity. Begone from my eyes, I despise you with my very soul. Rinse and repeat. That, in combination with retconning of some of the classic characters, straight up changing the canonical role, and the invention of events that never happened in their original story, could make some of the more invested in the Roto universe fans quite disappointed and even upset. But as we already established, I don't know shit about Lord of the Rings. So for me, the story is there just to purely justify the addictive gameplay loop of tracking, killing and dominating orcs. Dominating orcs sounds weirdly sexual, and I don't know how I feel about that observation. But how does this big digital playground manages to captivate people like myself for so long? Well, first of all, it's quite pretty to look at. And I don't mean just the graphical fidelity and the puddle reflection quality. The animations of you running, climbing or just being on fire are not the most detailed ones, but they are done in a way which gives you a visual satisfaction from just looking at them. They are fluid, have weight to them, and make your traversal from point A to B feel stimulating on a spectacle level, even if they are not particularly mechanically complicated. However, the moment you enter one of the countless fights in this game, all the simplicity goes out of the window. Shadow of War and its predecessor as well follows the rhythmic beat-em-up style of combat that Batman Arkham games popularized. That means you have quite limited pool of options of just hitting and counterattacking at the start of the game, but the further you progress the story and the more areas you clear, the more options you get to cause havoc and chaos around you. I like how your character progression is purposefully made to make you feel more and more unbalanced the further into the game you go. If in Batman games you feel like a predator who's stalking and overpowering his force with skill and complex machinery, then in Shadow of War you just leave the mortal plane of existence to become a demigod who can ignore the most basic laws of nature or logic. What helps to sell this image of absolute power is the absurd detail to the combat animations and executions in this game. If outside combat animations are pretty but not particularly mind-breaking, then the vicious and savage nature of them inside combat is something that still keeps surprising me every time I launch this game. Looking at how Taron brutally stabs some poor orc to death just to impale and decapitate his friend Second Traitor never gets old. The dazzling visuals of pointless excessive violence, together with a progression system which makes you feel more and more out of control, creates a combat that is very cathartic and surprisingly intricate. What is also very intricate is the second reason why this game is more addictive than cocaine: the sweet, ugly and precious orcs. What was the main marketing gimmick for this game's promos is the unique Nemesis system, and to be fair, I've heard so much talk about every single little detail of this mechanic that I don't even want to waste my precious infinite page space on regurgitating the same things you've already heard a billion times at least. But it's fun, like really fun. Having this wide pool of random orc traits, in combination with different personalities as well as weaknesses and strengths, really adds up to the replayability of this game. I like booting it up just to see what sorts of horrible abominations the game can throw at me this time. Making orcs infiltrate, betray or just plainly kill each other is weirdly satisfying. It's like you're a genius mastermind who weaved a web of lies and deception to destroy the most fundamental pillars of orc society. I like going back to the Shadow of War. Yes, it's not the most convoluted or mind-blowing game ever made, but not every game needs to change your life forever. Some are here just to make us have some childish old school fun, and that's perfectly fine. And just like everything in our world, this game is far from perfect. At its release, it was riddled with the most annoying type of microtransactions. The boss fights are, well, let's just say, they are not so great. There is downloadable content which may vary from pretty good to boring to straight up ripping you off, and of course if you won't get hooked on fighting orcs to make them fight other orcs for you, to then kill the biggest orcs with your own orcs, then there is nothing else in this game for you. It's a very hit or miss game. The closest comparison I can think of is Doom Eternal. In that game all the story and narrative was also just an excuse to put you in a room with the most angry and ugly demons you've ever seen. A lot of people loved that game specifically for that. For the fact that it doesn't try to be a million things at once and rather just focuses on one thing to make it near perfect. To me, Shadow of War tries to do something similar. Story, lore, character journeys, all of that is purposefully made artificial to not distract you from the main attraction of the game, which is naturally killing a lot of very angry and very ugly orcs with little to no justification for doing so. And I won't complain, because this game may be flawed, imperfect, and sometimes even borderline bad, but I still can't stop thinking about it. Even if Warner Brothers is a company made of literal gurus who want to suck the fun out of this world, I still can't force myself to hate this game. I understand people who do. There are actual things we can criticize about Shadow of War, but at the end of the day, none of that will stop me from wanting to jump straight back into it the moment I'm done with this video.